Conformity is when you do something because it's supposed to be expected out of you, but you believe it's something to be expected. That's something that you have to do because of social norms, because you feel like it's something for you to fit in.
Conforming to me, I'm going to look at it in two separate ways. One is called individual conforming. Individual conforming is when a person takes upon him or herself to adapt new ways of behaving to a greater pressure. For example, there's that famous expression, when in Rome. When in Rome, you do as the Romans do. They have different customs, different culture, different languages. They behave differently. And when you're there, instead of sticking out like a sore thumb, you may want to conform to their ways. It makes it smoother for everybody around you.
Conformity is agreeing to rules or unsaid rules that have been set before you by a group of people. I conform because it allows for society to move smoother.
Conformity is when people change their beliefs to fit in with society.
Conformity is when people copy each other so that they don't get made fun of.
Behaving how it's socially acceptable.
Following standards and norms.
Conformity is when people change themselves to try to fit in.
Conformity is giving in to group pressure.
Conformity is adjusting to your surroundings.
Have you ever conformed?
Yes, everybody has conformed to some extent, even if we don't believe we have. To some extent, we have conformed. Granted, when I grew up, I used to do everything to appease certain groups and to appease certain social norms, to appease certain social values.
Who are struggling to get food, clothes, and shelter in the hood are so concerned with that philosophizing about freedom and socialist democracy is usually, unfortunately, beyond their rationale. They don't realize that America can't exist without separating them from their identity. Because if we had some sense of who we really are, there's no way in hell we'd allow this country to push its genocidal consensus on our homelands. This ignorance exists, but it can be destroyed. Niggas talk about change and working within the system to achieve that. The problem with always being a conformist is that when you try to change the system from within, it's not you who changes the system, it's the system that will eventually change you.
The actual definition of conformity is compliance to standards, rules, or laws. The etymology, according to the Old French, is to agree, to make, to be similar, and to be agreeable. From the Latin conformere is to fashion, to form, to shape, to educate, and to modify. There are many different ways of conforming. Some ways are through pressure, fear, acceptance, avoidance of criticism. Peer pressure or group pressure is a social pressure by members of one peers group to make a certain action, adapt certain values, or otherwise conform in order to be accepted.
Peer pressure is something talked about very often, especially when talking about drugs, sex, and alcohol. But it can be much more than that. We don't want to be left out or made fun of for not having the same toys as our friends.
Fear is an unpleasant emotion caused by the belief that someone or something is dangerous, likely to cause pain, or is a threat.
Fear is used so often in order to make those conform. Think about religion. If you don't follow the rules, you are in fear of going to hell. In our own government now, we can't even protest peacefully for fear of going to jail, even when nothing's being done.
Acceptance, an agreeable demeanor toward a concept, position, individual, or group. In regards to therapy, a welcoming and open-minded demeanor possessed by therapy professionals that puts patients at ease.
Through social media, we feel a need to constantly be accepted. We download all the same apps that our favorite celebrities and friends have so that we are accepted and fit in with society's norms. Majority of us now have Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and other forms of social media as a way to be included and accepted by society and our peers.
This also ties into avoidance of criticism, because we do not want society to think we are an outcast, so we conform and download any social media necessary to avoid standing out and being judged for not having it. We buy the same phones, dress in the latest styles, listen to the same music played on the radio, all to avoid criticism of others. There are many different types of conformity. The four main forms of conformity are normative conformity, informational conformity, identification, and compliance.
Normative conformity involves changing one's behavior in order to fit in with the group. Informational conformity happens when a person lacks knowledge and looks to the group for information and direction. Identification occurs when people conform to what is expected of them based upon their social roles.
Compliance, changing one's behavior while still internally disagreeing with the group.
You can't wear a tank top 2 days in a row, and you can only wear your hair in a ponytail once a week. So I guess you pick today. Oh, and we only wear jeans or track pants on Fridays. Now, if you break any of these rules, you can't sit with us at lunch.
Yo, pedestrian.
Realistically, class like the oyster white penny wagon 3. Double no flow. Got what you need, live and breathe on good smoke. Who tilt, who low, who shoot, who kill, who will. See your permanent score. Clever on scale, ecliptic. My part originally scripted. Once plastic like lifted. Words bang like David Spinach. Then hit it. Hard as my ball did it. Quit it.
I'd rather be proud of what I am rather than desperately try to be something I'm really not.